welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
This is season 3 of the podcast where we take all the internet's wrestling content, we dump it into the randomizer, we fire it up, it selects a program for us to watch, and it went back to the well one more time for WWF Superstars. Last time we visited WWF Superstars, it was back in 1991, and Earthquake squashed Jake the Snake Snake. That was a tremendous, very memorable episode of Superstars. You can find that season 2 of the podcast, episode 17, I believe, in your archives. Evergreen content. It's waiting there patiently for you.
Yes, an iconic moment in the televised history of the WWF during that time period. One of the most impactful angles, I guess you could say, of the Superstars run. Here in 1995, WWF Superstars is a little bit different. I'm sure you'll talk about it, Jeremy, but we are no longer in the period where Superstars was the A show where all the big angles happened. Now you have WWF Mania, you have Action Zone, and you most notably have Monday Night Raw in the mix.
That's right. This is running up on the 2-year anniversary of Monday Night Raw. So yeah, this has definitely become the B or C show at this point.
We'll hear more about the 2-year anniversary edition of Monday Night Raw a little bit later on. 2 matches announced, one of which feels befitting of a big episode of Raw. The other one, yeah,
we'll get there. But first, let's, for those who didn't hear that episode of season 2, first of all, shame on you. Go back and listen to it. And here's a little bit of the history of WWF Superstars. WWF Superstars of Wrestling was the flagship syndicated show for the WWF. It started in 1986, and until 1992, it was called Superstars of Wrestling. And in 1992, it was renamed to just WWF Superstars for the remainder of its run to 96. That was due to a lawsuit by another promoter who had claimed prior rights to the phrase Superstars of Wrestling. So the Superstar show itself was the A show where you would get your squash matches, you would get a featured match, but this is the show where the angles happened to set up the big matches, to set up your pay-per-views, your Saturday night's main events. This was the show where the angles would happen, and all of the other shows, Wrestling Challenge, Primetime Wrestling,
Spotlight,
you would see clips from the thing that happened on Superstars. This edition of WWF Superstars aired January 7th of 1995.
Because every time we watch a WWF TV show, it's part of the build to the Royal Rumble. Have you noticed that?
I forgot. I did not realize that. You're right. We've been on a streak.
Both episodes of Primetime that we've reviewed have been... Well, no, I guess the other one was on the road to WrestleMania, but this was on the previous episode of Primetime was on the road to Royal Rumble 1990, I believe. We've had several other ones as well. It's always on the road to the Royal Rumble. Actually, the episode of WWE's ECW is building to the Royal Rumble. Almost half of that show was dedicated to previewing the Royal Rumble, as you do on ECW television.
That's right. Season 10, episode 1, if you're watching on the Peacock streaming service. The show was actually taped December 14th in Newark, Delaware, in front of 4,600 people. This was reported by Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter as being a heavily papered crowd. This show opens with Vince McMahon telling us that the Tag Team Championship Tournament is going to be taking place exclusively on Superstars.
I had flashbacks when this graphic popped up to that ECW, was it 1994 or 1993 TV that we reviewed?
Yes.
That started with that very, very basic looking graphic of the tag team tournament. Same thing here, less than I guess a year or two later. A little bit better production quality, but not that much better, actually.
We do have a bracket, like you mentioned. Let's run through these teams. Let's run through these teams. This is the tag team division in the World Wrestling Federation.
Let's keep in mind, if you go back and listen to our SummerSlam 1996 episode of the podcast, where we talked about how horrible the tag team division was in the WWF, that 4-way tag team title match with the Body Donnas, the Smoking Guns, the New Rockers,
and the Godwins.
And the Godwins. That was your tag team title scene in 1996. What did the beginning of 1995 have to offer?
The natural pairing of Bam Bam Bigelow and the Native American Tatanka.
Heel Tatanka as part of Ted DiBiase's corporation.
So I didn't realize they were part of this corporation until later on in the program. So just seeing them on the bracket, I had questions about how this team formed.
Are they faces? Are they heels? Is this Battle Bowl?
Yes, and they defeated Men on a Mission in the first round of the tournament.
Mo and Mabel.
Head Shrinkers defeated Anvil and Owen Hart.
By the way, when you see Head Shrinkers, you are led to believe this would be Fatu and Samu.
100%.
More on that later.
Yeah.
But yes, they defeated the not Hart Foundation team of Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart. This is the new foundation without the cool hammer pants and suspenders.
The Heavenly Bodies defeated the Bushwhackers.
What a battle that must have been.
And on this episode of Superstars, we're going to get the final first round match, which features the Smoking Guns against the team called Well Dunn.
Yes, Timothy Well, Stephen Dunn, the team that had wrestled throughout the South as Rex King and Steve Dahl. Here they are, Well Done, but it's Dunn, and they're well done. Get it? Haha.
Yeah. And the winners of that match will take on the Heavenly Bodies in the next round. But we're alerted that Bart Gunn got an injury. His horse fell on him.
His horse fell on him. And if you listen to the SummerSlam 1996 episode and went back and watched that, I think it's a bit dubious that these men rode horses on a regular basis. That may be why the horse fell on him. That may have actually been worse than Butterbean knocking Bart Gunn out, his horse falling on him. So
the Smoking Guns had to withdraw from the tournament.
I don't get. Why does Billy Gunn not get to choose a tag team
replacement?
Partner?
Yes.
Why is he paying the price for Bart's horse mishap?
So they've been replaced in the tournament by the team of the 1-2-3 Kid, Sean Waltman, teaming up with Bob Sparky Plug Holly.
Yes, Bob Sparkplug Holly, who had just transitioned from the previous, even more ridiculous name of Thurman Sparky Plug, which is one of the worst WWF names of all time. It was right around that era where we had Freddie Joe Floyd and TL Hopper. We'll have a few other of those ridiculous gimmicks. When we have the Royal Rumble Event Center, we'll run down some of those other luminaries in the company.
Yeah, so Sparky Plug Bob Holly is a race car driver gimmick here. We hear all about his race car driving and what have you. But they're going to replace the Smoking Guns in the tournament. Dave Meltzer, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, reports the Smoking Guns, they weren't in any trouble. The story was that Vince McMahon changed his mind and decided to give a big push to the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly, so they invented the story that one of the Guns fell off his horse and got injured.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was just a random, let's give these guys, Vince McMahon wanted to give these guys a push, and the push ended one day after the Royal Rumble. So
what you're telling me is that Vince McMahon sometimes changes his mind very quickly, and this is not a new development.
Yeah, they ended up, spoiler alert, winning the tournament and winning the tag team titles at the Royal Rumble. and then they lost it at a house show to the Smoking Guns shortly thereafter,
Wow.
making this whole tournament worthless.
Worthless and making good times. There are so many times during this show where you can see how ripe for the picking the WWF was, and how if WCW was not knee deep in, Hulk Hogan versus the Butcher Brutus Beefcake at Starrcade just days prior to this, how the fact that WCW overtook the WWF in the Monday Night Wars with Nitro, and particularly when the NWO came around, it could have happened even earlier, because this is a pretty dire product.
We've got Pyro, and the show is underway. We open with the tournament match. Steve Dunn and the 1-2-3 Kids starting out. We get some double team drop kicks from Kid and Bob Holly.
Well, before that, we have Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler. That's your commentary team for this show. They are not ringside, but not way up in the rafters either. And for some reason, Jerry Lawler is like 3 feet higher. Like, his seat is like 3 feet higher than Vince McMahon. It's some sort of running gag throughout the show that really never lands. Yeah,
Timothy Well and Bob Holly are in. We get a flying head scissors and a drop kick by Holly.
Yeah, Bob Holly is high-flying, young or young-ish.
He's lean here. He's definitely not as...
skullet baby face. Bob Holly, he does not really resemble the hardcore Holly you would know from years later in the WWF or in the WWE. We also learn, and I have zero recollection of this, that the 1-2-3 Kid is actually a former WWF Tag Team Champion with Marty Jannetty.
Yeah. I was surprised to hear that as well. Again, this is a dark period in WWF for me, or wrestling in general. I wouldn't be coming back to wrestling for well over another year, so I had missed out on the entire 92 through 96 period. So this was stuff I missed. So yeah, I was surprised to hear Marty Jannetty and the 1-2-3 Kid had a title reign.
I was still watching wrestling at this point. I was a WCW fan that was growing dissatisfied with the very Hulk Hogan influenced version of the product at this point. So I was sampling the WWF more than I did before, but I don't remember that Jannetty Kid tag team title run. We should also mention, before we get too deep into this match, just how disgusting Well Dunn's gear is.
So I did make a mention. I do have that in my notes, that the team of Well Dunn look like an 80s tag team here in 1995. Like,
it looks like if you put Easy Money's gear on a singlet.
It was a lot of layers and neon, and yeah, it definitely, it wasn't a good look for it. It felt very dated in 95.
The worst part of it is the neon thong design over
a singlet.
It's all the singlet, but the design of it is like they're wearing a thong over a singlet. As a team, they're perfectly fine, but in a world where you already have the Heavenly Bodies in your tournament on your roster, you don't need a second-rate version of the Heavenly Bodies.
No, and forever their entire run, when looking at this team, their entire run was a lower on the card tag team. They never were even a mid card tag team. They never got a push. Surprisingly, both Well and Dunn not alive as of wow. Yeah, they both passed away young. So
Steve Dowell actually, a few years after this, or maybe a year or so after this, had a bit of a run, if you can call it that, in WCW in sort of the jobber plus role. I actually recall seeing him a few times on Nitro. He might have been the guy that was in the ring with Mike Enos in that
when Scott Hall came out.
When Scott Hall came out on Nitro, I'm pretty sure that it was a Steve Dowell Mike Enos match that led to one of the biggest and most successful angles in pro wrestling history.
After a low bridge, 1-2-3 Kid goes over the top to the floor. Well hits a back elbow off the top on Kid. They get the heat on him for a while. Well ends up doing some pretty good looking running leg drops, taking the move that's one of the 1, 2, 3 Kids staples there. He did a good job doing it.
Vince even calls it out and says that's 1, 2, 3 Kids move. Jerry Lawler says he's doing it even better, and Vince basically says, yeah. We should also mention that Harvey Whippleman is the manager of Well Done, the former Downtown Bruno, who last on this podcast over on the bonus content feed was seen with a young Sid Vicious as Lord Humongous.
That's right. And
Downtown Bruno, Harvey Whippleman was not Lord Humongous, by the way. I should make sure that's clear.
No, so you could tell also here in 1995, anyone who has a manager was a low on the card act. Like none of Jim Cornette or Harvey Whippleman, none of these managers were managing anybody. I guess Ted DiBiase would be the closest thing.
Yeah, but he was managing, his big charge was King Kong Bundy, which we'll see later. So, yeah, in a lot of ways, this was the beginning of Vince McMahon really not being into managers. However, you get not that much further after this, and Jim Cornette, it felt like the entire company was revolving around him back at that SummerSlam 96 show. Remember, it felt like he was managing every heel in the company. He had so many guys that he had to farm some of them out to Clarence Mason.
Yeah, so he's managing the Heavenly Bodies here, and he shortly after this show, he is forced to manage Mantar as well.
God,
we'll get to that later.
We'll get to Mantar. Talk about, if this was terrestrial radio, that would be a tease as we go to a commercial break.
So back to the tag team match. Billy Gunn cuts an inset promo wishing Kid and Bob Holly best of luck.
Zero charisma here from a young Billy Gunn. It's amazing that this is the same guy that a couple of years later would go on to be a part of the New Age Outlaws with the Road Dogg. Also want to mention that Bob Holly makes a save at one point in this match, and Vince McMahon, like with a straight face, says that Holly is risking disqualification.
The Kid hits both Well Done members with a clothesline, makes the hot tag to Bob Holly. All 4 men are fighting. Well gets sent into the steps at ringside. And then here's the big finish.
It happens.
I thought of you, Adam. I thought of you on this big finish.
My God. Yeah, Bob Holly goes to the top rope after throwing Timothy Well into the steps. He had made a blind tag, and he proceeds to come off the top rope with the most hilariously terrible top rope sunset flip you have ever seen in your life. Longtime listeners of this show know how much I despise the top rope sunset flip, in that you are giving yourself a flip bump to the back from a high angle, and this is somehow supposed to allow you to not be hurt and roll up your opponent. He half hits it. He bounces off the back of Stephen Dunn through the air, lands awkwardly on his side, rolls his man up in something that looks nothing like a sunset flip, and gets the victory. This is where I feel that the randomizer is completely trolling me at this point.
I thought so too. This was hilarious. That
I feel like we've had more appearances, by the way, of the top rope sunset flip than we have of Greg the Hammer Valentine in this podcast, and I don't think that's fair.
It's getting real close. We've had a good dry stretch here of no Hammer Valentine, so I don't want to jinx it. I'm looking to knock on some wood here, but the top rope sunset flip has definitely replaced Hammer on most of our shows.
Johnny B. Bad would not approve of this top rope sunset flip. It's a terrible move, but at least he did it well. Bob Holly did not do this too well.
We go to the WWF live event news segment hosted by Stephanie
Wyatt, who actually...
Wyatt? Is that how you say it?
Stephanie Wyatt. She was the co-host, or maybe she would go on to be the co-host. I don't remember the timing. But she was the co-host of WWF Mania with Todd Pettengill. What her delivery, it's as though she was auditioning to replace Mark Summers as the host of Double Dare, is the best way I can describe it. Big 90s Nickelodeon vibes from Stephanie Wyatt.
Yeah, I looked it up, and she apparently was a DJ before getting this job. That she was hired as part of the We need to have younger people on television to push the new generation theme by Vince McMahon.
Some things never change.
So she only lasted a year with the company and then left after a contract dispute. So she runs down the upcoming matches in the tournament, and we get to a promo from the Head Shrinkers, and wait, what? The Head Shrinkers are Fatu and the Barbarian? What is this? Was the Barbarian was a head shrinker? I had no idea.
Yeah, I legitimately have zero recollection of the Barbarian replacing Samu in the Head Shrinkers. This is so confusing, having the Samoan SWAT team and the Powers of Pain melding together into the Head Shrinkers version 2. The promo is not great.
It's all Lou Albano.
It's Lou Albano in 1995 cutting a promo. So, that you're getting what you're getting there. Then we go back to Stephanie Wyatt, and she refers to Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka as, quote, the Bammer and the Turncoat. Which sounds like it's like Smokey and the Bandit or something. Sounds like a 70s TV show. She throws it to an interview with Ted DiBiase and the aforementioned Bammer and Turncoat. And this interview set is the most low budget thing, honestly, that I think we've ever seen on any episode of this podcast. They're backstage somewhere, and there's like this sheet that looks like it's the equivalent of 50s floral print wallpaper covering the backdrop, but only covering maybe 55% of it. I have no idea how this made air. This is terrible.
Yeah, the DiBiase promo was fine. Bam Bam Bigelow is always fun, but he didn't really get to say much. We go back to the ring. Bob Backlund against Bob Knight.
Bob Backlund against Bob Knight, who Vince McMahon then calls Bobby Knight. The best way I can describe Bob Knight here in his black singlet and his feathered haircut that looks like it would have belonged more in 1985 than 1995 is he absolutely looks like a guy that you, Jeremy Deemer, would have bought scalped Cubs tickets from in 1995.
Totally.
On the corner just outside of Wrigley Field.
Yeah, he is exactly that guy. And here he's in there with Bob Backlund, who is, he had a run as a brief run as WWF champion, had a feud with Bret Hart, and then was squashed immediately by Diesel, who's the current WWF champion now.
In 8 seconds at a house show at Madison Square Garden.
And they are starting to push Backlund back down the card from the main event spot.
Yes.
Down.
Even though he's all over this show.
Yeah, so Backlund starts out amateur wrestling this guy and quickly gains the advantage, pats him on the belly for a good laugh.
He also... Bob Backlund, when he's in the ring doing all these amateur moves, riding, spinning around, he sounds like a bushwhacker promo while he's in the ring. It's constant, whoa, yay. He is part bushwhacker, part Popeye the Sailor Man, part Bob Backlund. It's also, there's several moments, particularly later on, when he's walking down the aisle and he watches the finish of the match on replay on the video wall, where it's as though 1995 Bob Backlund is consciously doing a parody of 1982 Bob Backlund for this entire run.
Vince picks Backlund or King Kong Bundy to win the 95 Rumble.
Yeah, it's also interesting. This is kind of a window into the mindset that Vince McMahon is in at this point. This is that Raw 1994 episode we did earlier this season where we noted that it was kind of shocking how many legends were on the show in prominent positions. We had Afa, we had Chief Jay Strongbow.
Yep.
All these different guys, and it's kind of still in that realm here where for whatever reason Vince is feeling nostalgic and he's got all the 80s guys around, and that's who he thinks is going to win the Royal Rumble.
We get a couple of slams by Backlund. He slaps on the crossface chicken wing, gets the victory. And like you mentioned, he watches the replay on the video wall as he leaves.
Amazing.
We then go to the Royal Rumble report with Todd Pettengill.
Well, before we go to the Royal Rumble report, they go to commercial by telling us what is coming up next on the show, ostensibly to get us to not change the channel.
No, stay with us. Yeah.
However, what they give us as a tease to have us stay with them, it is coming up next, Mabel in action. That will be followed by a King Kong Bundy interview, followed by the British Bulldog in action, followed by your main event, the debut of Mantar.
And we're halfway through the show already. So there's a lot of stuff to come.
I would not have done this. I would have let people wonder what was going to be on their wrestling program.
So they run down the Rumble card. WWF title, Diesel defends the championship against Bret Hart.
We have to talk a lot. I mean, maybe a separate side podcast a lot about Bret Hart's promo here.
Yeah.
And the visual. Bret Hart is in a white room. It appears as though he has moved in somewhere, has not furnished the house at all. He is not wearing a shirt. He has more of a beard than I ever remember seeing him have. And the only thing on the wall in this ostensibly brand new house, white walls, is this terrifying, huge, taxidermied alien that looks like it's from the Aliens movie set. And it's just in the background for no reason whatsoever.
It's the only thing in this room is that thing hanging on the wall.
It is a blank white void. And the only thing there with Bret Hart is this terrifying alien. This promo is something else as well, because Bret calls Diesel, quote, a jam-up champion. He says that Owen Hart is first on his hit list, but I cannot focus on anything other than this alien on his wall.
And then we get a Diesel promo. And holy cow, this promo was horrible. This was so bad. It's so bad. I'm debating whether to insert it in here or not.
You have to, and you have to put the whole thing in here because honestly, I don't know that the people listening can get a full appreciation for the AWA 1987 Marty Jannetty heat segment level length of this promo and how much you're just waiting for it to end and it never would. This is. You couple this with, do you remember on that episode of Raw from 1994, that horrible King's Court segment?
Yes.
With Diesel cutting a promo. You couple that with this, and I don't recall too many times where I've seen a wrestler who was being presented by the promoter in a way that the promoter thought made him look and sound cool. But was so completely far off the opposite direction than this. It is horrendous. And what is up again here, like a year later, with his Vegas bookie meets New York cabbie accent.
Yeah, so weird. So here's the horrible promo.
Hey, Bret, Big Daddy Cool here. Haven't seen much of you lately. Gotta be bored. You know, listen real quick. Get a little closer, Bret. Come on up by the TV screen there. I'm going to do you a little favor. Since you're so bored, how about we play a little game? We got 2 weeks to the Rumble. Let's play a little game here. All right. I'm the game show host, Big Daddy Cool, and we're going to play word association. Know how it goes? I say something, you say the first thing. You got it? All right, here we go. Bret. I know it's your first name, Bret. No, that's not what... Okay. I got the answers here, so you got to, bear with me. Now, I got Bret Maverick. Bret and Bart Maverick, the Maverick Brothers, tag team, huh? While back, okay. And you were wrong. Okay, second one. Hitman. Huh? No, Bret. Wrong again. Now, maybe in Alberta, you're the Hitman. I grew up in Detroit, Bret. It's Tommy, the Hitman Hearns. Tom Hitman. You know, the guy that got robbed by Duran. All right. Last one. I'll give you a couple more. Hart. I know it's your last... You play my game, all right? I know it's your last name. I'll give that one to you, but I got, heart attack, heartache, gotta roll it, How about heart to heart? How about you gotta have heart? I won't sing, but you know what I mean. All right. This is the bonus question, Bret. World Wrestling Federation Champion. Bret, wrong again. Not you, me. Big Daddy Cool. Walking into the Rumble with the gold, and brother, walking out. See you in Tampa.
Man, there is no question Diesel is ready.
Worse the second time. That's so
Terrible.
bad.
Like this one-man word association game where he's playing both
why?
characters. It is so easy to understand when you hear that, how Diesel completely and utterly failed as the top guy that he was pushed to be in 1995.
His gimmick is Big Daddy Cool. There was not one cool thing about what I just heard. No.
He felt like the most uncool dad ever,
horrible.
but definitely not Big Daddy Cool. And just when you listen to that, keep in mind that in 1995, Vince McMahon was utterly convinced that this character, this version of Big Daddy Cool Diesel, was going to be the next Hulk Hogan.
Also on that show will be the Intercontinental title, the champion Razor Ramon against Jeff Jarrett. The Undertaker will take on IRS. And of course, the Royal Rumble match.
Well, the Undertaker will take on IRS. And the setup for this is hilarious. We get 10 seconds, if that, of Todd Pettengill saying and showing that apparently IRS, Irwin R. Shyster, the former Mike Rotunda and the future VK Wall Street, brought out the Druids to ringside and had them do nothing. And
That
the
was
story
it.
of the story of this match is that will the Undertaker be distracted by the Druids?
Some notables that are going to be in the Royal Rumble match.
Oh my God, we have to run down everybody. It's not just notables. there are luminaries and low lights throughout. Lex Luger,
Yeah.
King Kong Bundy, Doink the Clown, the aforementioned Thurman Sparky Bob Holly Plug, Quang the Ninja,
Who's Savio Vega. Yeah.
yes, Adam Bomb, who I was inexplicably a huge fan of as a child, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, and then get ready for this, Dick Murdoch.
The returning legendary old man Dick Murdoch coming into the 95 Rumble.
But you call him old man, but in 1995, I guarantee he looked no different than he did in 1982. Also fascinating in that Dick Murdoch wrestled in Royal Rumble 95, and then he was also, if I'm not mistaken, on that Slamboree 95
Slamboree
show.
95, the Legends match there. Yeah.
Yes, just a few short months later. So Dick Murdoch getting around in 1995. Then we have the Portuguese Man of War, Aldo Montoya, the future Just Incredible, the British Bulldog, Men on a Mission, the 1-2-3 Kid, Shawn Michaels, and then we have 4 men who have been announced as the newest entrants.
I don't have the list, so you'll...
Okay, I do, because I am a professional podcaster.
I only wrote down the notables. Now, one of those is Mantar. I know he's one of the last 4 remaining.
And if I'm the promoter, if I'm Vince McMahon, I would have held off the debut of Mantar until the Royal Rumble, but they spoiled it here. Mantar, Anvil, Neidhart, Owen Hart, and the returning Crush will be in the Royal Rumble. Todd Pettengill then says that if Bart Gunn has recovered from his horse injury, the Smoking Guns could also be in the Royal Rumble as well.
So what I learned from this list is the 95 roster, not deep. You had Michaels, Owen, and Bret on top, and Razor Ramon. And then the rest of these guys, the rest of that roster is thin.
Luger, but he'd already been killed by this point.
He'd already been pushed back down, yeah.
Well, the other thing to remember, too, is by now, we are in the era of the Royal Rumble where the winner goes on to WrestleMania to challenge for the WWF title. So it's not even as if, in earlier Rumbles, you could have just had somebody like Big John Studd win and it didn't affect WrestleMania. Like, there are maybe 2 or 3 people of the 30 men in this battle royal that you could even possibly imagine going on to WrestleMania to challenge for the WWF Championship.
Yeah, the Rumble started with 1 and 2 being Michaels and Bulldog, finished with Michaels and Bulldog at the end, and Shawn Michaels with the victory, going on to WrestleMania 11 to take on Diesel.
I have a fun story about that, by the way. I ordered that pay-per-view as a kid, Royal Rumble 1995. My mom did not like me. Well, she's just not a wrestling fan, so she didn't like me staying up to watch a pay-per-view. So it was always like, had to really, really push to be able to watch it. If you remember, the finish of that was Davey Boy Smith throws Shawn Michaels over the top rope. Michaels goes over, but 1 foot only hits the floor. We don't know that initially. So Davey Boy Smith ostensibly wins. His music goes off. I turn the TV off. I eventually go to bed. I get up. I go to school. And kids at school are telling me that Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble. And I'm arguing vehemently with them. I am so angry that I'm being gaslit by all these children who don't know pro wrestling, telling me that Shawn Michaels won the Royal Rumble. And then I go home. I'm so confused. I go home and I rewatch it. And I see that, yes, in fact, there was more than I saw after I turned it off. And Shawn Michaels did win the Royal Rumble.
Unbelievable. The only way that would have been better is if you instead had to go to the hotline to find out what happened.
Yeah.
So back to Superstars. We've got Mabel, half of Men on a Mission, the giant 500-pound future viscera Mabel, taking on Iron Mike Sharp, who's still going strong in 1995.
And looks no different than he did tied up in the ropes some 5 years or 6 years prior against
Jim Powers.
Jim Powers.
So that's on a prime time from 89 in our season 1, I believe, of the podcast. But you've got Mabel and Iron Mike Sharp. Iron Mike Sharp, underrated long-term jobber.
It's underrated in terms of longevity.
Longevity,
properly rated in every other way.
Yeah, when it comes to longevity, you don't think that he was in the 90s, but he's deep into the 90s here.
Absolutely. He's also even more grunty than Bob
Very
Backlund.
grunty, yeah.
And very hairy.
We're told about Raw this week will feature a tuxedo match between Howard Finkel, the ring announcer, and the manager Harvey Whippleman. They will have a tuxedo match on Raw.
Yes, the other match will be Razor Ramon versus Owen Hart for the Intercontinental title, and I'm certainly more excited about that than the tuxedo match.
Mabel hits some slams, an avalanche, a big leg drop, and gets the pin.
His finisher is the leg drop, so
he got a surprising amount of air on that drop for a guy that size. He got up there for that one.
It was also very safe. He took care of Iron Mike Sharp because a full leg drop with thigh impact from Mabel would be quite devastating, but he caught him basically with the ankle on the leg drop. Mabel gets a big victory over Iron Mike Sharp heading into the 1995 Royal Rumble. Lawler tells us that on Raw, he will have Bret Hart on the King's Court, and also says that Pamela Anderson, who will be at Royal Rumble, is in love with him.
We get the Heartbreak Hotel interview segment hosted by Shawn Michaels, who
before that, we get promotional consideration paid for by the following.
A little Lord Al Hayes.
Yes, about 4 seconds of Lord Al Hayes' voice, which we needed desperately on this show before we get a commercial for the Raw is War video game. And then, yes, we go to the Heartbreak Hotel, where Shawn Michaels starts it by saying, once again, cats and kittens, welcome to the Heartbreak Hotel. Okay.
Yeah, Shawn Michaels had been out with an injury, and his return would be at the Royal Rumble. So that's why he's hosting these interview segments. His guest, King Kong Bundy. Now, let's talk about Bundy for a minute.
Let's go all the way back to one of our very first episodes of the podcast in 1983. That young Bundy with hair
from the World Class
jeans
show.
And a singlet, winning a battle royal to close out a show.
Yeah, back in our World Class episode we reviewed here, he's best known for headlining WrestleMania 2 in the main event cage match against Hulk Hogan for the title. That was in 1986. In 87, he wrestled at WrestleMania 3. He gave a splash to Little Beaver and ended up legit like hurting him and ending his career, which I had no idea about. And then he quit the WWF in 1988. And
disappeared.
Yeah, for the most part, he left pro wrestling until his return to wrestling was for ECW in 1993 as a mystery partner of Terry Funk in a match against Road Warrior Hawk and Sabu.
That feels like something that someone needs to find and get us to watch via the Be the Randomizer.
Be the Randomizer on our Patreon and request that match now.
Be the Intentionalizer for us and give us that match.
So he was supposed to get a big push in his 1994 WWF return.
Which, again, isn't shocking against the backdrop of all the other legends that we saw and talked about in 1994 on Raw.
But it turns out he was much slower and less impressive. And he ended up getting a match at the 95 WrestleMania 11, where he lost to The Undertaker, did little after that, and left the promotion in October of 1995.
And I'll tell you what, hearing Ted DiBiase's music and knowing that King Kong Bundy is the wrestler coming down in 1995 is such a massive letdown.
And he's standing there with DiBiase, and he does look a lot less impressive, and I can't figure out why. He looks exactly the same, but he always looked so much more impressive back in the day, back in 86, 87, 88, like here in 95. Why? I couldn't place it.
Because no, visually he looks exactly the same.
He does.
He does not look any older. He's big. He's like an oversized jelly bean with skin. But yeah, it's not like he was like this amazing fiery guy, but I think part of it is like, it does not seem like King Kong Bundy believes that he's King Kong Bundy anymore. And so why should we? Is the only way I can describe it.
Yeah, it was really weird. I couldn't put my finger on why he looked so less impressive, but he did. He was standing there. DiBiase says that Bundy's the favorite to win the Royal Rumble. Shawn tells Bundy that they're not friends and he's going to win. And this is when Bob Backlund makes his way out again.
Yeah, and Vince says that Shawn Michaels and Bob Backlund have, quote, a little coalition going on, which I need a lot more information about.
Backlund starts ranting, telling everyone to stand up straight. And then he says the new generation members of the WWF have besmirched society.
He says something about Royal Rumble being a pontimilious event.
This leads to the British Bulldog coming out saying he's going to win the Rumble. And then, you know, the WWE, WWF trope is always a bunch of guys come out saying they're going to win the Rumble. There's a big brawl and everyone gets thrown over the top. And you see, like, you know, this could happen at the Royal Rumble. Here, they all just leave. This was so lame. Everyone just walks away. No fight. Nobody broke anything on the set. Everyone just leaves.
And there were plenty of objects to be broken. There was a heart-shaped bed. There were multiple mirrors. There were lights. But instead, Shawn just says he's the odds-on favorite. He says he's done because it's checkout time, which apparently was a catchphrase it didn't get over for the Heartbreak Hotel. And everyone leaves. But just think about this. Like the main event scene, such as it was, or at least what they were trying to build up to here in this segment, was Shawn Michaels, Davey Boy Smith, King Kong Bundy, and Bob Backlund.
Those were the guys that could win and headline WrestleMania. Whew. So after commercial, the British Bulldog is back out, but he makes a full entrance. So he left to turn around and come right back out and make a whole full entrance.
He left so they could clean up the Heartbreak Hotel set. Comes back after the commercial, this time with the ring jacket, full entrance, big streaming fireworks with hilarious fake sound effects that are right up there with the ring post and cattle prod from that episode of Saturday Night's Main Event we reviewed on the bonus content feed. And he is introduced by a human being named Anne-Marie Sandy, who has the distinction of being the first person on Wrestling at Random to have 3 first names.
And she Everyone makes mention she did a great job. So I don't know if she won a contest or what this was. But
it appears to be the case, because afterwards we see her at ringside and she's just a person wearing a t-shirt doing this, but she did a perfectly fine job. The opposition for British Bulldog is a man named Mike Corey. And if you were to go into some sort of futuristic machine and throw Bob Knight and Mike Sharp, the two jobbers from this program earlier on, into said machine, set it to blender, and then something came out the other end, it would be Mike Corey.
It would be Mike Corey, yes. What an amalgamation of all the jobbers on this show. The British Bulldog in this match puts a delayed vertical suplex up. So he's holding him up for a while, then drops down in the vertical suplex.
The entire match is the length of him doing this vertical suplex. The amount of time it takes him from... It's set up by him countering a backdrop. Corey goes for a backdrop. Bulldog hooks him in a front face lock, stands there for a good 15 seconds, then lifts up Corey and holds him for another at least 15 seconds in this vertical suplex.
Vince McMahon somehow thinks that the Bulldog can eliminate a bunch of guys this way.
Yes.
I don't. Okay.
The very common suplex elimination in battle royals.
Power slam by the Bulldog gets the pin, and
Vince speculates that Davey Boy Smith just might be able to do that to King Kong Bundy this Sunday on the Action Zone. I doubt it.
Here we go. From the Isle of Crete, weighing 400 pounds, not even close, but that's what he's announced. That's what he's announced at.
Well, it depends. If they weighed him with the headdress on, like a Moose Cholak, which talk about a comp, talk about the randomizer.
That's exactly the comp.
This is modern Moose Cholak.
Walter Slow is the jobber who's
Walter Slow, who even Vince McMahon
he laughed at the name,
skeptical that this could be this man's name. Before we get into the look of Mantar, and there is a lot to talk about there, can we talk about Walter Slow's look? He is wearing, and apparently everyone had to wear some combination of black singlets and black trunks, some variety. But he's got long black tights. He's got a black singlet, and then he has this aqua blue, very small trunks over the singlet that keep falling down. He is getting murdered by Mantar in the corner, and yet he is most concerned about pulling these trunks up that are covering up nothing. He is already dressed head to toe in black spandex.
No, but I do love when jobbers have ill-fitting gear. That's
Yes.
always a preference.
This was one mask short of being top-tier Continental jobber stuff.
However, his opponent is Mantar. Now, he comes out with a giant buffalo head with horns on it.
Giant. This buffalo headdress is at least twice the size of this man.
But I did have a lot of Moose Cholak vibes, except when we reviewed that show where he came out with like a full moose head with antlers. And,
yes.
And this looked like that was like a taxidermied something you'd see hanging on a hunter's wall.
Yes, it looks like it could have been right next to that alien on Bret Hart's wall.
Yes, this headdress that Mantar is wearing, this buffalo head looks like not even
like
a high school
head.
Yeah, it's like
it looks like 5-year-olds should be hitting with a baseball bat to get candy from.
Yeah, the high school whose mascot is the Buffaloes wouldn't even let their mascot wear this headdress because it looked too silly, and it was just not cool enough. And so this is what this guy's wearing. He comes out to zero reaction.
Well, no, you are incorrect. It's not zero reaction. They show these fans as he comes out, and this whole thing is so weird because this is the first appearance of Mantar, right? They're putting it on TV, yet it's clear from Todd Pettengill saying Mantar and Vince McMahon's bemusement throughout this entire thing that they have already given up on this gimmick. It is dead on arrival. Vince McMahon is not trying to put this over as being terrifying. You could just hear he's like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And so they cut back and forth between Mantar and his headdress as he comes out to the ring and shots of the fans,
Oh
and
my
these
God.
fans rolling their eyes, groaning. It is a sight to behold.
He takes off this headdress and they cut to the fans, and you could see the moment that these people started questioning their fandom of wrestling. You could see it in every single person they cut to. These people were rolling their eyes. They were like, "What? Why are we here?
Yeah, what am I doing with my life?
What am I doing?
What were my life decisions that led me to be in this building with this Mantar at the same time? Where did I go wrong?"
It was incredible that the production said we've got to show people making the faces in the arena that the people at home on TV are making the same faces. They had to like reinforce that, yes, you're right, this is stupid, but we're all in on it.
Yes. The best part about this, when Mantar gets in the ring, before he takes the headdress off, and if you follow us on social media at Wrestle at Random or on Instagram as well, Twitter or Instagram, you will have already seen this. Mantar, with this giant headdress, rushes towards Walter Slow in the corner and then stops. What a visual, what a moment.
Like he's threatening to gore him with this like ridiculous costume.
Not rhino gore, but running of the bulls in Spain gore.
Yeah, Mr. Slow not threatened by this at all. He
also not terribly trained.
No. So Mantar then just throws some shoulders in the corner. He hits a fine belly-to-belly suplex.
Beautiful belly-to-belly suplex, like Shane Douglas style. Very nice.
Slow tries to throw a clothesline, a drop kick, no effect. A crossbody gets caught.
That drop kick, by the way, was horrendous.
So bad.
That needs to be pointed out. It is not a Corporal/Private Terry Daniels Southern All-Star Wrestling drop kick, but it is not good.
No, it was terrible. He catches him, just slams him down, and then a running clothesline. And here's his finisher. This is the Mantar finisher. He does a falling splash, not even a jumping splash. This is not a splash. Falls forward and gets the pin.
A falling pin cover. This will be relatively obscure, but for you Big Audio Nightmare listeners, fans of modern Japanese wrestling, if you watch Stardom, when Lady C goes for a cover and just kind of growls unconvincingly and then just falls on her opponent, that is what this Mantar did.
Oh, and so then they cut to the people and still unimpressed. These people are still like, what am I watching? Why am I here?
They are the rolling eyes emoji across the building, legitimately.
So I had to look it up. Fun fact, Mantar is the brother of PN News.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do we never get a team, Mantar and PN News?
We don't. Yeah, they're...
Mantar is still alive. He is 53 years old. Why are we not getting this man on indie shows now? Why has he not had his moment? Apparently he's the cousin of PN News, according to Wikipedia. He came from the Catch Wrestling Association as Bruiser Mastino.
Yes. I the Wrestling Observer newsletter had him listed as brother of PN News, but some relative of PN News, and they own a like some sort of a repo business together now.
He also played the role of the unnamed bodyguard for Goldust in 1996, appearing with Goldust at In Your House 7 as Goldust took on the Ultimate Warrior. He was also a member of the Truth Commission in the USWA as Tank, and he defeated Jerry Lawler to win the USWA title. But like you always do in USWA, you defeat Jerry Lawler to win the title and then lose it 7 days later.
More live event news with Stephanie Wyand again. We get a 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly promo. Kid mentions that he's won the title once. He's going to do it again. And then Jim Cornette's with the Heavenly Bodies. They call him the 1-2-3 Kid because he weighs 123 pounds. That was pretty funny.
Also, what was great was Jim Cornette making fun of Bob Holly's names.
Yes.
Calling him, basically making fun of the old Thurman Sparky Plug name, saying, why do you need so many names, doing it in much more entertaining fashion than I'm doing right now.
We then get a replay.
What was this? Vince and Jerry the King Lawler are now in the aisleway
in front of the video screen.
Video board. And what did they choose to show? Tell them, Jeremy.
A replay of the botched top rope sunset flip again. We see it again.
Why would you re-show that in excruciatingly slow motion on a giant screen?
That's when I felt like they were trolling you specifically. Like, we have to do it one more time.
Yes.
And then they run down the semifinals of the tournament, and they tell us that next week we'll get a special interview with Diesel, hopefully as great as this week's promo was.
Yeah, hopefully it's another one-man play. This one was so good. But yeah, next week's show from a wrestling standpoint sounds far better than this one. It's the semifinals of the tournament, so we're getting that weird head shrinkers team of Fatu and the Barbarian taking on the Bammer and the Turncoat. And then a match that I actually would really like to see, and I think would probably be a better version of the decent match we saw to open this show. It's Bob Holly and 1-2-3 Kid against the Heavenly Bodies.
Yeah, the finals of the tournament were the 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly defeating Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka for those tag team titles, then losing them the next day to the Smoking Guns. Like I mentioned, that's it for this show. It went off the air. Would you like to know the non-squash match results from this taping?
Yes, please.
The Intercontinental title, Razor Ramon defeated King Kong Bundy by disqualification.
Oh, God.
They also taped the semifinals there, which I just ran down. Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart defeated Men on a Mission.
Woof.
Diesel defeated Bob Backlund for the WWF title.
What was the length on that? Was the 8 seconds over under?
Yeah, didn't say, but I'll take the under. And The Undertaker defeated Tatanka for the. So that's what this crowd got.
So we got a double shot of Tatanka, the turncoat, twice.
Yes, and and you got 1-2-3 Kid and Bob Holly twice as well.
Wow,
yeah.
That does not sound like a great night out on the town.
So that was Superstars. What was your favorite thing on the show?
Oh man, I don't know how it can't be just the in on the joke presentation of Mantar. From
Sure.
I mean, there's that. There's the terrifying alien on Bret Hart's wall for some reason. From a wrestling standpoint, it's undoubtedly the opener. Nothing else was even an actual match.
No.
It was all just squash matches. The opener was totally fine. It was a perfectly fine TV match outside of that hideous top rope sunset flip finish. I would say, though, my favorite thing on this show was Bob Knight and Iron Mike Sharp combining to form Mike Corey.
Oh, there's so many worse things on the show, but how is it not that Diesel promo?
It's undoubtedly that Diesel promo. If we were going to do whatever the opposite of Mount Rushmore is for promos we've heard on this podcast,
Yes.
that undoubtedly is at the top of the list, because not only was it terrible, it was a main event guy, and it went on forever.
All right, and with that, we're going to call it a podcast. Make sure that you interact with the show. Tell us why we're wrong about Mantar or something else. At Wrestle at Random on Twitter, Instagram as well. Facebook.com/Wrestling at Random. Or you can send us an email, wrestlingatrandom@gmail.com. The entire back catalog of this podcast and all the links are available at Wrestling at Random. If you want to go back and listen to a real good episode of Superstars, it's in there. The entire back catalog, all evergreen content. Go back there, and those episodes are all waiting for you. If one show a week is not enough and you want to hit some of those bonus contents, we mentioned a few fun matches and shows we recapped during this show. We mentioned that we did it on the bonus feed. If you subscribe to the bonus feed, we're talking in linear fashion right now. We've got 50-some episodes that you unlock for that low price of $5. You get the entire back catalog of the bonus content. And you can also go to patreon.com/Wrestling at Random, not only to sign up for the bonus content, but if you want to be the randomizer, you can also make a request, and we will review a show for that bonus feed. Apple Podcasts is another way to subscribe. Right there in your Apple Podcasts app, click the button that says subscribe. It unlocks all of the bonus contents in the same feed that you get all of your free content in right now. And if sometime in the future we are behind some other sort of paywall, you can support the show and unlock the content there as well. So yeah, definitely we appreciate the support. If you can't support us financially, please support us by telling a wrestling fan friend about the show. Or tell one of your friends who used to be a wrestling fan about this show. Say, hey man, you remember Mantar? These guys just reviewed a show about it. You should give it a shot.
Or maybe Mantar and his cousin / brother PN News are listening right now, and this show will bring them together to form a tag team to take over the indie scene in modern professional wrestling.
I like it. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I do think going back to that Diesel promo, that even Manny Fernandez would be telling Diesel to get to the point.
That's right. A little word association, Adam. Diesel promo. The word is Manny Fernandez. Yes.
Exactly. And with that,
we'll call it a podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you again next time.